welcome to Inspired Coach Podcast and another one of our incredible inspirational interviews for you. Today, I am absolutely delighted to be bringing you the wonderful Shirin Eskandani. And Shirin is here to talk to us about decolonising your coaching business. Shirin is a teacher, a facilitator and a guide, and she specialises in mindfulness, mindset and manifestation. Three wonderful M's. Shirin has been a featured wellness expert on The Today Show, in the New York Times, in Shape and Cosmopolitan magazines, and an amazingly incredible, wondrous fact about her is that prior to building her now incredibly successful coaching business, she was an award-winning opera singer and performed at no less than Carnegie Hall and the Metropolitan Opera. Shirin is on a mission to empower others to reclaim their own innate wisdom and knowledge. And when you hear from her in this interview today, you will soon see why she is such a wonderful person to truly help you tap into that knowledge and wisdom within. Specifically, Shirin is here to talk to us about how you as a coach or a coach trainee or maybe a future business owner can ensure that your coaching practice and business is one that is operating from a decolonising lens. And this is something that is truly possible for us all and is something that we should want to engage in because it is part of running a business as a coach that can see our work take on a much more just, rich, inclusive meaning and practice. And that's something I think we should all be striving for. This is also my time to remind you, everyone, that there is now only a few days left to go before we close out on our current incredible offers for the Beautiful You Life Coaching course next beginning in February 2024. You have until 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, September 8th, to enroll and avail yourself of a 24-month payment plan if you need it, to receive $500 off your enrollment and to get that incredible 3-month momentum mastermind style course experience after your course. And so that's going to take you from 9 months to 12 months in our orbit. We can't wait, and we're already so excited for all of you who have been joining us so far. For now ahead, though, we hope you love this interview with Shirin. She is the most incredible person to learn from, and I know that you are going to gain so much from this inspirational interview today. Shirin Eskandani, welcome to Inspired Coach Podcast. I am so honored to have you on as our guest today.
Oh my gosh, I am honored and thrilled and so grateful to be connecting with you and your community again.
Well, I could not think of a more wonderful and amazing person, let alone coach, successful coach with your wholehearted coaching business that you've now been running for so many years, and you have a brilliant podcast yourself. You really are a true life coach, Shirin. You know, you're a true life coach for an alchemist for someone's life. And, you know, there's not necessarily that many of those in that pure life coaching zone that are around anymore in many ways. And so I love that about you and your work, which is wonderful. But we are here to specifically talk about a topic that I know is very dear to your heart, and it's very important to me. And it's something I believe is important to our community and is something I believe should be important to the entire coaching industry. And that is decolonising our coaching and our coaching businesses. So let's start at the start. Could you please share with us, what is it that you mean by the term decolonisation?
So, decolonization is a really important word to me, and I think it's a word we're hearing so much more of right now in our conversations. And I love that we're hearing a lot about it, but I also feel like it's this it word, right? And it's especially being thrown around in the world of wellness in order to say that a coach is creating a practice that is perhaps inclusive or that it's different from what's happening out there. And so I think it's really important for us to look at what decolonizing anything is. When we think of decolonization, we think of the idea of kind of taking over a geography, taking over a land. But colonization goes way beyond that. To take over a land, you're also taking over a people's customs and habits and imaginations and beliefs, right? So colonization is something that is so much deeper than just someone taking over a land. And it is also something that affects all of us, right? It's not just something that certain folks have to work on. It's something we all have to work on. There's an inner colonizer within all of us that is kind of making us believe certain things and act in certain ways and think certain things. And when we talk about those things, right, it's kind of those bigger structures of capitalism and white supremacy. And so when we think of decolonizing, for me, it's this process of liberating ourselves from what we think we're supposed to do or we should do. It's really about questioning everything, right? Questioning everything from the smallest things to the biggest things. Like, right, I am a woman questioning, why does beauty look a certain way? Or as a coach, why does coaching have to be this way? So it's a continual process. It's a rich process, and I think it's a necessary process.
It's certainly necessary, and it's all those things that you mentioned for sure. And Shirin, I have an example that's floating in my own mind and my own life about decolonizing and learning about that internal colonizer and internal oppressor that you say. But I'm wondering if you can give us an example of how you see colonizing influence just play out in someone's general life in a way that they might not necessarily even have full cognizance of. It's just the way that it's always been.
Right. So even things like work ethic, work ethic in and of itself is very much influenced by this inner colonizer, inner oppressor, these prioritizing work over rest or ease or joy or pleasure. Or even we think of work ethic, something that I've really been trying to do is intuitively working, right? Doing things that feel best to me, especially as a business owner, right? As opposed to what I think I'm supposed to do, right? Anyone who's listening who has a business knows you can get caught up in so much of the noise and feel like, oh, I have to scale or I have to do this or I have to hire that. And for me, it's about really cutting out the noise and reconnecting to what feels best for me, right? Having informed decisions from all different aspects, but ultimately, I am the one who gets to design the way that I work. And that has been, I mean, that's a continual continual journey for me. Yeah.
Yeah, as I think it is for many of us, because so many people, in fact, all of us, I think, at some point in time have been influenced by the belief that we are what we do
Yeah.
and how productive we are equals how successful we are. And that can be a very dangerous and slippery slope to go down, which anybody who's ever experienced burnout,
Yes.
will know in some way. And, the example, if I may share, that I was thinking about for myself before from a colonizing perspective is just simply around as a white woman that comes from, that complete lineage throughout my entire life. Just waking up from a colonization and also anti racism perspective of how centered I am all the time by all aspects of life and culture and business and education, and what that has contributed to me believing about myself, of being deserving of certain things, of being okay to take things or have things. That kind of thing has been one, for me personally, has been one of the biggest aspects of my ongoing decolonizing work, is like not really understanding just how spotlighted I am and the privileges that that gives me in my life, and then waking up to that, which again is a continual ongoing process, and while simultaneously realizing that that comes at incredible cost to Black, Brown, First Nations, other people of color, and so many others, especially those that have had their lands, culture, bodies, so many other things directly colonized. So that, that's that swimming in the water of not realizing until you realize. And then life is never the same, and it never should be the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think conversely, on the other side, as a woman of color and as, Black, Indigenous people of color, it's taking up space, right? So it's the opposite side of that, that's also decolonizing for us, is to feel that we are safe enough to take up space, and that we can take up space, that we have the ability to take up that space. So I love the verb that you used, waking up. And I think that is this process of waking up, and you're waking up to a lot of things that make you feel amazing, but some things that make you really feel not so great as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does make you question a lot of things which absolutely need questioning, because revolutions and changes in cultures and industries and big picture stuff doesn't happen without revolutionary thinking.
Exactly.
And colonized thinking is not revolutionary. It's not that at all. And we have to look at things in an entirely different way. So, Shirin, tell us, as a now very experienced coach and somebody that has been running, your own extraordinarily successful, wonderful business in this industry as a woman of color for many, many years, what are some of the colonizing influences that you see actually exist in this industry? Please don't hold back, because you're talking to somebody who loves this industry. And I know people who listen to this podcast love this industry as well. And that means we need to hear the truth. Because if you love something, you need to be real with it. You need to be raw with it. And let's face it, there are problems.
There are a lot of problems, and it is, just as you said, my love for coaching, my love for this modality that we get to practice, that we have the privilege of practicing, that really motivates me to talk about this. So something that really has become a truth that I've been sitting with, is that coaching is a modality that is centuries old, right? We once used to call a coach an oracle or the village elder, right? So this isn't something that all of a sudden at some point in the 20th century appeared. This is something that we have been practicing. And I think that those of us who are called to be a coach or are coaches, we are not the first coach in our lineage, right? Coaches are space holders. They're space holders. There are those that can create a space in which someone feels supported enough to reclaim their own inner fortitude and their own inner wisdom. That to me is how I always define coaching. But what we kind of see, because I love history and research, we see at the turn, actually the 19th century, but really in the 20th century, is, spoiler alert, a bunch of white men co-opting a lot of different ideas from Eastern, spiritual practices, different religions, different indigenous wisdom, and creating what really becomes now the foundation of the standardized coaching world. And some of the books that kind of respond from this, it was called the New Thought movement. The books that spawn from this, we still read: The Science of Getting Rich, How to Influence People. These are still books that sell out right now. And these books have really, I still have coaches, I know coaches who recommend these books, right? When we look at these books, we see so much of what is still happening in the world of coaching, which are things like cultural appropriation, which means taking things from other people's cultures, not acknowledging them, exploiting them, using them for your own benefit and gain. We see this idea of taking away the agency of the people we're working with and really making them dependent on the coach, quote unquote coach, as that they have all of the answers, they know what they're doing. We see a science, right? Quote unquote science, that this is the model that works. This is the framework that works. And if you can't fix yourself around this framework, then there's something wrong with you, right? That you didn't do the work properly. We see spiritual bypassing. Things like instead of actually allowing a human to experience discomfort, instead of allowing a human to talk about their lived experience, saying, oh, well, you should vibe high, or giving them a mindset tool. And listen, I love mindset, but we are whole human beings. We are a body, spirit, and mind. We are beings who have backgrounds that are really varied. But what's really interesting is we see this in the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, and we see it today still. And we have come to a point, sadly, in the coaching world where coaches don't want to call themselves coaches anymore, Julie.
I know. This is happening. Mm-hmm.
Because of this, and it's not coaching that's at fault, right? It's kind of, we've taken what coaching is, which you and I know, and I know a lot of people in your community know this. Coaching is so powerful, but it's been diluted, it's been trademarked, it's been copyrighted. All of its soul has been taken away, where we've gotten to a point now where those of us who practice with skill and care and ethics, don't want to call ourselves coaches because of the associations with that word. Yeah. I mean, I could go into specifics, but that's a very general. Yeah.
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much. You've given some incredible examples there. And yes, it's very sad. I do see some people saying this, that they don't want to call themselves a coach for lots of different reasons, many of which you've given there and a whole range of others besides. And I hope for anybody that is listening, who has either studied with us at the Beautiful You Coaching Academy or is thinking about training to become a coach, no matter where you may do that in the future, that you really, really listen in to some of the things that Shirin has said in there are actually not coaching. One of the things that we emphasize so heavily at Beautiful You is that you are not there to tell your clients what to do. You are not a guru, and any sort of way that you're setting yourself up where either internally you're thinking you have to have all the answers for someone, or people are coming to you believing that that's what you should be doing with them, there is a problem there. And that is not self-agency. It is not self-determination. And coaching needs to be about somebody finding that within themselves. And too many of us, and this feeds into the whole, concept of colonization as well, think, but then what do I do? It's like, if I'm not telling someone what to do, like, what am I doing then? I can't be doing anything. But little one, you are. You are, when you are that magnificent space holder that Shirin was just talking about, and you are providing a space of consciousness and openness, and you are asking powerful questions, and you are looking at body cues, and on and on and on we could go. You're coaching. That is what you are doing. You're not giving advice or consulting. It's, oh gosh, we could just go round in circles about this, but that then feeds back into the productivity that you were talking about before. We think if we're not talking and we're not doing that we're not working, or we're not. Oh, jeez. Like, you know, like
Yes.
it is a tangled mess at times, isn't it?
It's a tangled mess. It absolutely is. But as you and I both know, it's a mess worth tangling. And
Yes.
and
Yes. We love it. It's a
we
lovely
love it.
mess.
And we know as coaches, and again, all the folks listening who are coaches, you know, as a coach, this practice is just as much for you as it is the people we get to work with. So everything that we are doing in service of them, we are also must be doing in service of ourselves as well. Like it's just, that's just how the equation has to be. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Without question. This is always circular, and even that in and of itself is revolutionary and decolonizing in practice because, of course, the colonizing mindset is top down. It's
Absolutely.
hierarchical. Yeah. So, Shirin, how do we untangle? Like, we're I know this is a really big question, but if we are looking to decolonize, not just our life in general, whatever we do for ourselves as coaches, we do for our lives as well. But let's specifically talk about decolonizing our coaching practice. Where would you consider to be the main place for someone to begin? If even they're listening to this today and thinking, ooh, I do that, or I think I might have some tangled thoughts about that area.
I think, when it comes to decolonizing our coaching practice, the very first thing to me is that, as we said, my main belief is that my job is to create a space in which my client can reclaim their own inner wisdom, their own inner fortitude, their own inner resilience. And so the practice becomes creating a kind of toolbox in which I can allow for that to happen. And as you know, Julie, that's like some of the greatest coaching calls for me are ones in which maybe I'm talking for 15% of the actual session. And it's a real practice, but it involves us taking ourselves, our ego out of the equation a little bit, which can be really, really difficult. And one thing that has been so incredibly helpful for me is education and community. Education and community have been how I have been able to decolonize how I practice, I live my life. I'll first talk about community because I think this is something that in the coaching world we get a little scared because we think, well, if I practice in community, if I have a community around me, if I tell my client to go check out this thing from this other person, that means that I am not the person who knows the things. And so why would someone work with me if I don't know the things? This was something I definitely thought when I first started. I would be afraid to kind of lead them to another teacher or a book or a resource. And this work is done in community, just like anything that is healing, it's always in community. So for me, it's about having a community that helps me as a human being. So like my therapist, my friends, my coach, all of those folks, my Peloton, and and also I would love to get sponsored by them if they're listening. And also to have a resource of people for my community to work with. So for instance, I have a membership. I always bring in other teachers and facilitators. I always bring in other guides because I don't know everything and I can't serve everyone. It's knowing things like if a client, you're sensing this isn't the right fit, knowing when to let that go, knowing when to refer them to someone, because my goal is for you to find your own inner wisdom. If that's not with me, then let me help you hopefully find it with someone else. Citing things, referencing things. I mean, Julie, we know these things happen where people are like, oh, I just made up this tool. And you're like, wait a second, that tool sounds a lot like that person's tool
Yeah.
that I, so really understanding that our magic, our special uniqueness isn't is magnified when we practice in community in all of the different ways. I mean, that has been a really healing thing for me. It's been a really confronting thing with me because I grew up feeling like I had to be the best. And so that community piece, I think, is a big part for me of the decolonizing. And community also means, we said the idea of cultural appropriation, cultural appreciation. We can still learn from other cultures and learn from other folks, but how can we do it in a way where we are appreciating them? Which means we're talking about where these customs come from. We're talking about the problems and the history of those places. Maybe we're also bringing in folks from that culture, not in a way to tokenize them, but for a way to really connect with those practices and rituals in the deepest way. And then the other thing is education, doing anti-racism work, doing work. I've had to do a lot of work around gender and trans inclusion because that's something I just don't know much about. And so if I'm trying to create a space that is actually inclusive, I need to know these things. I need to know how to serve my community in the best ways, reading tons of books, seeking out others who think differently. I think these are so important in our practice of decolonizing, and asking the questions and sitting with the questions is so important.
Thank you so much for so generously sharing all of that with us, Shirin. I am just, I couldn't nod my head more as you were speaking. And one of the things that was really coming to me as you were sharing with us there is about how many of those things that you mentioned, especially what you talk about in regards to education, is also a direct line, everyone, just in case you have either forgotten or you might be learning for the first time about one of the core tenets of being trauma informed as a coach.
Yes.
You cannot claim to be trauma informed as a coach if you are not ongoingly educating yourself through reading, courses, development, research, education about the lived experiences of people who are walking through the world every day, experiencing things that impact their safety, their livelihood, their well-being, from everything from Black, Indigenous people of color to trans people to a whole range of different things in between. Being trauma informed is just like decolonizing. It is not something that is set and forget. It's not something that you learn and then I'm done now. It is an ongoing process for life. And so there's a direct line, isn't there, between decolonizing practices and being trauma informed.
Absolutely. There absolutely is. And I'm thank you for bringing that up too, because I think, oh goodness, I mean, I'm so happy we're talking about trauma informed spaces, but this was not being discussed maybe even 2-3 years ago. And when you think of coaching and humans, most humans, all humans have experienced some form of trauma. And so to now really be learning about these things, I think, holy crap, how was this one not part of my certification? How the heck did I even, how was I able to work with humans without this knowledge? But also just recognizing, we do better when we know better, right? So really, right? Do it when you can. And I think another part of this too is the whole process of being called in or called out for something. I think that's also so incredibly important. Of course, all of our intentions are so good. But a process for me of decolonizing is understanding that I mess up. I can mess up. And, one of my most proud moments, Julie, was something happened within one of my membership community, and someone felt safe enough to address it with me. That to me, actually, I was really proud that I have a community, and we handled it beautifully, and things were resolved and we had repair. But I was really proud of that moment of how I had created a space in which people knew how to resolve it, who to address it to, what we can do. And they felt safe enough to do that because let me tell you, and I have a feeling you may have had this, there were a lot of spaces I went to where they said you can do this, but I did not feel safe enough to actually address the harm that was happening. And so, yes, so just that's a big part of decolonizing as well, is learning from our mistakes. Yep.
Yep. Yep. And knowing that, there's also so much of what this conversation is about is freedom. And
Yes.
right? It's like, what does this all come back to? And I just keep thinking about the word freedom, because for me, there has been a lot of freedom through the anti-racism work that I've done and the decolonizing work that I'm ongoing with. Far from perfect in either of them, no such thing, all of that sort of thing, is understanding that I've made mistakes and I will also make more in the future.
Yeah.
Not because I deliberately will do so, but because simply through my own internal colonizer, oppressor, my white privilege, various other things, that's going to happen. And not being afraid of that, but knowing, okay, when it does happen, I have more tools now to know how I might be able to respond. I can't know what might happen in the future, but I do know that I'm more able to deal with that. And also that community that you speak of, that I am surrounded by people that will pick me up while also simultaneously looking at me and saying, do better.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly that.
Shirin, I am so glad that we have had you on today to talk about this incredibly important topic for us as individual coaches, for us as a collective, and the entire industry. Coaching is something that remains very white centric, and therefore it remains very colonized, with lots of those touch points. And I am just in awe and honor of you and every other coach that is attempting to really try and change the collective here for us, because this is not just about for us as coaches, it's about helping us become better human beings. And so thank you for your gifts, and thank you for everything that you bring to this industry.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Julie. I feel the same way about you, and the work that you do is so important. And you were someone who I think cued into a lot of these things earlier than a lot of other folks. And so very grateful for you and the work that you do and the space that you create for other coaches, for coaches of color, for so many of us. So thank you so much. This has just been such a privilege, and I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you so much, Shirin. Everyone, if you would like to learn more about Shirin's truly incredible work, please go to the podcast section of our website, where you can find out more about her incredible journey to, we've been talking here about this specific topic of decolonization, but make no mistake about it, as I was saying at the beginning of today's episode, Shirin is a truly incredible life coach. She does absolutely amazing work through her business, Wholehearted Coaching, and she also has an incredible podcast to listen to as well.